Let's talk about Stray Kids in Seattle. I was fortunate enough to get a spot at Barricade without camping or joining fan-made lines. I noticed a few things that happened because I've been posting some videos from the concert. I've had a lot of questions asking about how it went, how the VIP lineup was, what number was my band. There are things like the camping line and the fan-made line that have been going around, but everything I know is from hearsay, and so I don't necessarily want to comment on those things. So I thought I would share about the things that I experienced. Starting off with the merch pop-off the day before, supposed to start at 12 p.m. We arrived at 11:45 a.m. Though we didn't necessarily wrap around the building at that point, it took us 4 hours before we could buy any of our merch. And all of us had VIP. So I would recommend getting merch the next day unless you don't want to have to carry your merch around or you don't plan on wearing it. Otherwise, if your city has a pop-up, go really early. If I knew that I would have gotten through the VIP line quickly, I would have probably bought my stuff then. For the actual concert day, some of my friends and I didn't arrive until 7 a.m. Some of my friends and people in the pit arrived at 5 a.m. mainly because they were worried about the camping line that had been there for about like 2 or 3 days prior. Most people wanted to be able to get in line for the 8 a.m. opening time, waited on the opposite side of the street from the official line. People were just kind of running back and forth whenever they thought the line was opening up. And naturally, because it's across the street and downtown, that's a very dangerous thing to do. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Very fortunate because there was no traffic. I just wanted to tell you exactly what happened. I know there was some discourse at the front of the line. I did sit across the street and see a ton of people in the fan-made line go towards the front of the line with their hands and arms linked together because they were trying to preserve their spots. But I don't know what happened to those people. One thing I do know is I have a friend who was in ADA, and I heard that at the front of the line, there were a lot of people who were being trampled on and tripped and stuff like that. At one point, some people were like, F ADA. And I think that type of behavior should be reprimanded. Those type of people should be sent to the back of the line, but that's just my opinion. There was some misinformation being spread by staff. At one point, someone was saying that light sticks weren't allowed in the venue. It turned out they just meant that light sticks weren't available for purchase. A lot of us were led to believe that after check-in, we were being put into the stadium and kept there. Fortunately, that wasn't true, even though a lot of people had to throw stuff out. One of the staff members was actually saying, if you have a lot of stuff with you, you need to like get out of line now, get someone to hold your spot and put your stuff away somewhere. Once we finally got to check in, the group of friends I had before me and after me had separate tickets, but within the same pit. The first group of friends went. When they got their bands, it was in the hundreds. When I went with my group that had the tickets together, our ticket numbers were 48, 49, and 50. And the third group of friends, their numbers were, I think, 70 something. I also had friends in a different pit who had bands in the 70s. We were really surprised because our bands were all over the place. I don't know for sure, but my theory is that they might have just mixed up the numbers because of all the chaos that was happening earlier that morning. Once it was time to line up at the VIP gates, there were different banners for each pit. I'm not sure if people realize this, but normally when you have bands for concerts, it makes a big difference if you work with the people around you to try and line yourselves up in order. Despite myself and some strangers asking people to move back, we were faced with resistance of some people even saying to move forward instead. Once they started letting us through the gates, assuming we were in proper order, they gave us another bands to indicate that we were allowed on the field. After entering into the stadium and going onto the stairs that lead from the lower bowl to the field, first and foremost, people were starting to push. So I had called a staff member who was standing there with the sign that said pit 2 to ask if they could stop the line for a bit because it genuinely looked like people were about to fall down the stairs. We were then spread out on the stairs of the lower bowl and asked to go in order again. Paying attention and helping out with your band number really makes a difference for everyone around you, including yourself. They had us set up from 1 to 50 and they let that first group of 50 people walk towards pit 2. And since my friends and I had bands 48 through 50, we technically had last pick of where to stand within the pit. However, everyone was standing around the extended stage, so we got lucky enough that the barricade for the main stage was empty. Again, I had friends who were in the 70s. They were able to meet with us because most people were trying to get to the extended stage as well. And then again, my friends who had, I think their bands were actually 120, they were able to get behind us as well. So we were able to stay together as a group because the area that we were in was not one that people were interested in at the time. Regarding sound check, they were very strict about no phones. They had security guards walking around. You had your phone out, you could be kicked out. I've already seen a lot of sound check videos out there, and I'm just saying they weren't allowed. One big thing I really did want to share about though, because this was my personal experience. So I'm a baby stay. I've only been in the fandom for about a year now, and I've always heard people talk about how stays are kind of mean, or like a lot of people have left the fandom, and I've never really understood why. But between soundcheck and the actual concert, I feel like I could kind of understand for the first time. I think it's really important to be like a girl's girl, a guy's guy, whatever you want to call it. But at a concert setting, I think it's important to be a stay's stay. If we're all part of the same fandom, it would be nice if we could stick together. And I'm sure the kids would appreciate it if we treated each other with respect and kindness and thought outside of ourselves. I've attended a concert previously where I got second row barricade. After sound check, everyone had said, oh, like, can we all move back so everyone can sit down? And it was no problem. However, at the Stray Kids concert, I turned around and I asked as far as I could see if people could move back. There was a small wall of people who just stared back at me, kept asking, oh, do you mind moving back? Or asking the people behind you if you could move back. To which they responded, well, you're gonna have to ask the people behind us to move back. So I had asked if they could maybe like move out of the way so that just move out of the way a little so I could ask the people behind them. They didn't, so I took a deep breath and said, okay, I guess I'm going back there. So I moved back. Everyone was sitting down, and I asked, hey, would it be okay if y'all moved back? I know that we have 2 hours between soundcheck and the concert, and I don't think anyone wants to be standing on their feet for 2 hours. Some people moved back significantly. Others moved like the tiniest bit, to which I kind of just stared and was like, oh, okay. And I repeated myself, just asking in case people didn't hear me. At one point, this one person said, well, if you want to sit down so bad, I can take your spot at barricade. And I was just shocked. I was kind of scared to share about this online because I have a bit of a fear that it's like, oh, it's that chick who told us to move back. But at the same time, I know that the friends I have and the friends I made can vouch that the situation was really weird, because even when I moved back up to barricade, the people who helped me get back up to my spot thanked me for trying and said it was unfortunate that they weren't able to sit down either. So of course, once all is said and done, the concert was amazing, incredible. I enjoyed every moment of it. But personally, I just wish that people would learn to look beyond themselves, to treat other people with respect, because I don't think you would act like that in front of your bias. And I don't think your bias would give you a pat on the back for that kind of behavior. All to say, just be a stay.